Gorgeous George Vidovic has been one of the most colourful characters on the local motorsport scene for almost 2 decades. In 2017, the old snake charmer made a major decision. He sold his successful Python car and chopper construction and car restoration business and his iconic South Melbourne workshop and set out to fulfil a dream. A massive road trip crisscrossing the United States of America to race his own Aussie-built Python at America's greatest racetracks. George briefly returned to Australia for Christmas and he made another road trip, this time to the Virgil Automotive Workshops in Dandenong South, where we caught up for a bit of a chat about his great adventure and his exciting plans for the future. Welcome to another special edition of In Pit Lane. George, welcome back to Australia, welcome back to In Pit Lane. Boy, you've had an adventure, haven't you?
Mate, it's so good to be back and seeing your face, mate. You know, I remember the last time we caught up was probably about, especially on Pit Lane, was probably about, 10, 15 years ago, the last interview or the last little schmozzle of things happening with Richard Catchlove and that magazine that he was putting together.
Yeah, well, the last time actually was at your workshop. That was
you're absolutely right.
Yeah, that was a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it wasn't too long after that everything sort of changed. Tell us, like, for people who don't know, as I said, it's a great adventure. That's why I wanted to get you in, because a lot of us have the bucket list. A lot of us have the, one day I'm going to Nürburgring, one day I'm doing this, one day I'm doing that. Yeah. What was your dream, and how did it all happen?
Well, look, as you know, we started motor racing in '97. That was the bug, really. Well, the bug was way before then, but the business didn't allow me to grow into motorsport until about '97. So, and that's when it truly, unfortunately, I started late in life. I was 37, 38 years of age when I first sat my ass into a racing car. And it's a tough gig to do that at that age, especially when you've got a business that you want to grow. Nevertheless, I got into it, we did quite successfully with it till about 2000, until the floodgates were opened and the Mark Sports car eligibility list changed forever and Porsches came on and high-end cars. We ended up winning 3 sports car championships, or should I say 2. One for myself in '97 when I drove the car, and then Christian de Gossen drove the car. And then I jumped back in the car after Christian, and then we finished up on a 3rd podium championship finish the following year. So great success. Things changed. The business grew to the point where, we were doing a lot of restoration. We were doing a lot of resto mods. We got our roadworthy license for motorcycles and cars. We started Python Chop as a motorcycle division. So it was growing exponentially. But in the back of my mind, there was this Americana thing happening. And always had a passion for America. To the point that my business thrived from America, as far as we were purchasing parts from there, cars, motorcycles, engines, all that sort of thing. So over a period of time, we were traveling to the United States anyway, anything between 2 to 4 times a year. So we had created this little network in the US. Unbeknownst to me, what I was creating, I wasn't aware of, because my heart and my soul and my brain was in Australia trying to develop Python vehicles and Python choppers and GV Automotive and everything else that went with it. So the journey started there in '89. Then, hence, I became the chairman of Specialty Vehicles Australia, which was affiliated with the VACC, and I'm proud to say they're still running hot to this day, and trying to make changes within the automotive industry as best as they can. But I think I got worn out, mate. I think hitting my head against the brick wall for so many years, I just sort of stepped back a little bit and said, you know what? It's time for me. I think I want to be a little bit selfish. There are things that I want to do. I want to be able to sit in my car and hold the handlebars on my Harley before my hands crimp up on me at the age of 90 and I go, I should have done this and I should have done that, and I don't want to be one of those guys. And I never am one of those guys. I've always been a guy that if I say I'm going to do something, regardless of what's surrounding me and who's saying what, I just go out and do it because it's what I want to do.
So how did it all happen? I mean, as you said, you were running Python cars and the choppers and all that sort of thing, and then suddenly you've sold the business, and the next thing I hear is you're saying, "I'm going to America. I want to race at some of the great circuits of the United States." So how did that happen? I mean, it's not just the money side of it, but I'm thinking, like, for people out there, as we said, we've all got that bucket list idea, but it's not as simple as just throw the car into a shipping container, send it over there, and jump off and drive. I mean, what about things like, visas and how do you explain that all to people in that sort of, I'm just going to live my dream for a year.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, and it sounds complicated, but it really it isn't, and a lot of Aussies over the years have done that little travel to the United States and stayed there for 3 months with their cars, toured around, come back. So it's not as if I'm creating something new here. It's been done, what's his name, Tricky Dick here? Dick Johnson went over there for a stint of driving. There's been a lot of Aussies that have gone over, made their bones in various classes and come back to Australia and really created what they created. I'm not going to get into when I say I'm not going to get into how I did it, I'll get into how I did it. I won't get into why I did it, because there was a huge thing that occurred politically that forced me out a little bit. After certain meetings with certain politicians that just totally demoralised me, and I realised that I couldn't go any further where I was, and certain political issues were being raised in the automotive industry that made it difficult for me to try to jump that fence and go onto the other side of the street and continue my journey. And I just said, enough's enough. I've had enough. And you've got to understand, going back to what I said, 89 was my first travel there. So I'd been creating this network over there unbeknownst to me. I'd been creating this network in freight, transport, everything, logistics, unbeknownst to me, by purchasing cars for you or various people. So I had that in place. So when it all came that I needed those people, it was just a phone call away. We were lucky enough to sell the building in its entirety. We were then lucky enough to sell the business to a gentleman by the name of David Murphy from TRJ Engineering that now has transferred Python vehicles into the Hallam area. So everything fell into place very quickly, and I was surprised how quickly. I would say we had the business and the factory sold by August, September. By October, I want to say October 17th or November 17th, my container had landed in Canoga Park in Los Angeles with car number 99, my 53 pickup truck, my rigid Harley Davidson, 2 crates full of spare parts and tools and bits and pieces of the car, and they'd landed door to door from Melbourne, Port of Melbourne, to the Port of Los Angeles, to the factory at Canoga Park, November 17th, 2017. So it's doable. I don't ever want to tell someone if they've got a passion or a dream to do it. You know what? You've got a mind. Pick up the phone, make some phone calls. It's not complicated. Visas are a little bit different. However, in saying that, doing what I've done, I had an E3 visa, what they call an E3 visa. We have a company that's registered in the United States that does import and export. So we're still dabbling, so to speak, with certain people ring us up and want advice on transport. They want us to have a look at a car, so we'll purchase a car on their behalf and ship it back. So I still dabble, but not as heavily as I used to. From the visa point of view, we've tackled that. From a visa point of view, if another person wants to do it, they can go over on an ESTA. They can get their car over there on a very, very small carnet. David Murphy, speaking of David, him and 3 other hot rodders actually got the opportunity to ship their 3 hot rods over there, leave it there for 3 months. They did a small tour of the LA Roadster show. They went to big hot rod shows in Kentucky and Nebraska. And that was David's bucket list at the age of 50. So he did it. It can be complicated. When I say complicated, it'll drag on. You'll wait for the car coming over in 22 days, then it'll hit the wharves, then it's got to go through customs. So it goes through that process, but it's not impossible. It is doable. And I say to anyone out there, if you've got a passion to try to race in another country, you can do it. It's doable. If anyone out there wants advice, they can contact you and they can contact me, and I can try to walk them through as best as I can. But that's the simple answer to your question, basically, Brett.
When you talk about running the great meetings, I mean, at the start of the year, you sent me sort of your calendar for the year. I mean, where are you racing? I mean, because I'm thinking in terms of your car.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay. It's in the style of a Cobra.
Yes.
But it's a Cobra unlike most people over there would have ever seen before.
Correct.
It's sort of, Shelby Americana meets DTM.
Correct.
And I can imagine if you brought something like that into the historic scene in Australia, people would need hospitalisation.
Yes.
Now you've gone over there, and it seems that they've just embraced you with open arms.
Yeah. Look, you're absolutely right. The red flag did come up when we started, because no one had any idea of where to put me. The vintage guys didn't want me. The IMSA guys said, "Yeah, bring him on, no problems." But then I was in the same category as what I was here, and I think I showed you some photos, or I sent you some photos from Daytona, where they've put me in the GT IMSA category. I'm gridded up. To my left is a 2010 GT2 Aston Martin. To the right is a SLS Mercedes-Benz Gullwing GT3 out of Europe, and everything in between was Lamborghini Hurricanes, GT3 Porsches, GT2 Porsches, IMSA Corvettes, late model Trans Am Mustangs. So I was campaigning my car in those circles, which was difficult then because, and one of the reasons they put me there, they go, "Oh, well, you've got aero. You've got a rear wing, you've got a front splitter, you've got a diffuser at the back, you've got side pods over your side pipe, so we can't put you with the vintage guys because you look too modern. We know that you're going to struggle with the IMSA guys, but unfortunately the look of your car pushes you in there." But in saying that, I made a lot of friends, made a lot of changes, did a lot of gas bagging, as you know I'm good at that, made a lot of good contacts, and started racing with a smaller series in California first, just so I could get my foot in the door. So we entered an organisation called VARA. VARA predominantly does Northern and Southern California. So we started racing at Willow Springs, we raced at Buttonwillow, Sonoma, Fontana. They were the tracks that we predominantly stuck around back when we first started. One of the reasons I did that is through talking to some of the American drivers and guys that owned cars and teams, from Porsches down to small shops that did small stuff and vintage cars. They said, "George, show yourself at the race meetings, do the right thing, don't be so aggressive on the racetrack," because that was an eye opener, being talked to. Went to I've got so much to tell you. I've got so many stories I can tell you. It's unbelievable. Went to a dinner party. A couple of the drivers pulled me over and said, "We know a bit about you, George, and we just want to let you know that we're gentlemen racers here, and we don't race for sheep stations. So we just want to let you know is just take it easy." I know that's something that a lot of the vintage guys who come out here for things like the Phillip Island Classic and all that, the late Peter Giddings and others, would say to me, you guys, and then Europe takes it the next step. Because I couldn't believe when we went to Europe for a couple of historic meetings over there, the Grand Prix de l'Arche d'Or at Montlhéry and then later on at Dijon. They were full on. It was supercar stuff. I mean, compared to, but in America, it does seem to be watching things like the Laguna Seca, the run, the historics there,
meeting there.
Yeah.
It does seem to be very much. I think John Bowe actually had some similar topics.
I ran into John Bowe at Coda. Yeah.
It was just like you're very, but just
Well,
you don't do that.
Yes, you're right. I mean, us Aussies, we're hard chargers. We like racing. We're careful. We don't intentionally rub panels, but when it happens, it's in a controlled environment, so to speak. As crazy as that sounds. The Yanks just don't want that. They don't want you to rub panels. If you rub panels, it's like Armageddon has arrived. They're quite protective of their classic vehicles, almost to the extent where they say, "You've got a very expensive car. We want you to race it, but we don't want you to race it hard." Yeah. So it's a really fine balance. They do it quite successfully. When they get a dark horse like George Vidovic in the game, that's got wide eyes and bright and bushy tail, going, "Wow, I've come to the land of milk and honey here and want to do my best," you sort of draw back a bit. "Oh, whoa, pull the reins up a bit, George. Take it easy. Walk before you start running, and then you see how he goes." So that's how it all started with me. And then we expanded to the East Coast. We ended up doing the Circuit of the Americas. Ran into John Bowe there with Joe Collegia. John was running Joe's Formula One car, and Joe was running A new car, a March or something, I think, yeah, that he had just recently purchased. So, and I got the opportunity again to run my car at Coda. Then we ended up going to Road America. We ran our car at Wisconsin at Road America. I mean, the experiences I'm having with my car, I can't begin to tell you how exciting it is. The amazing thing is, Python Vehicles, the Python sports car, George Vidovic, I'm getting the opportunity to race my car on 3 continents. And I'll tell you the third. We're just about to ship the Cobra to the UK, and we're going to run at Brands Hatch, Silverstone and Spa. So the Cobra's going to run there. I've got a second car, and I don't know if I told you about that, but I'm fortunate enough that... Yeah, well...
Car. Tell us about this, McLaren.
Well, I just bought a M6B McLaren that was in storage, dare I say a barn find, for probably about 23, 26 years. It ran, last time it ran was at the 1996 Road America Can-Am series, 30 years of Can-Am. That was the last time it was on the track. Found it through some people, bought it off this gentleman at the right price, brought it back to California. I've totally stripped it down to the bare tub. All the parts have been reconditioned. When I get back on the 20th, I'm actually going to start assembling the car. So that car will stay in the United States. I'll race that around American tracks. Then the Cobra itself, the Python, is going to be in the UK and Europe, and I'll race that in Europe in 2020. So it's going to be amazing. It's going to be hectic. Those tracks that I'm racing on are iconic tracks. The history of those tracks boils down to the age of the country, boils down to its automotive industry, as we know, it's got a rich automotive industry, boils down to the volume of people and the passion within those groups of people, everything from NASCAR racing to outlaw racing, GT sports car racing. There's numerous classes. Because the country's so big, there are numerous organisations. You've got VARA, it's a smaller organisation. You've got HSR that predominantly takes care of the East Coast. You've got SVRA, which is an organisation that's now starting to grow, and they've got a lot of events on the West Coast and the East Coast. You've got Road America, you've got Road Atlanta, you've got the Brickyard, you've got the Canadian tracks. You'll have to bear with me, I can't remember them all, Brett, but they're iconic tracks that Andretti's raced at, Bruce McLaren, Denny Hume, all those famous 60s and 70s guys that are around for a long time that to me are icons and legends in the motorsport fraternity. When there was no car safety, they drove those cars at 200 miles an hour. It's as simple as that. Daytona, my God, the Daytona 500, spectators, 140,000 people. The beauty about that event, HSR ran that event. We bumped in on a Tuesday. We were on track Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 5 days of my car on the track, everything from test days to Q1, 2 and 3 to races 1, 2, 3 and 4. They had a 1 hour endurance event for us sprint guys that wanted to do the 1 hour, and they had the 24-hour event for the guys that wanted to do the 24-hour event. So it was the huge demographics of the cars. You would have a Mazda Miata parked right next to a Lola T160 in the garage. It was amazing, and not only that, you had the diversity of those cars at Daytona, but Daytona itself is an iconic track known by just about every motorsport gearhead, rev head in the United States and then some, and internationally, that it's a spiritual place for a lot of people. I mean, we were there, and they had probably 40,000 spectators for a club, so-called club event. That's the sort of, and it's not just the event that draws it, it's the place that draws it. What
about the way they run the meetings over there? I mean, you've had a lot of experience over here running at the state level and also a number of national series as well. What's the difference between sort of, the way that they run the environment over there and what you're running? Because I saw some of the things, some of the things that they're doing, you've sent us like posters that they've got with your car, the wonder from down under, and it's all, and they're really, you can see they're really out there, and even though they're state level events and relatively small events, they really get out there and they want to promote them and they want to make you welcome and they want to make everybody sort of welcome. It seems to be a different environment altogether.
Look, you're right. It's amazing. I don't want to poo-poo Australia because I don't want to do that. It's my country. I love it. My motor racing history started in this country, and I thank CAMS for it, and I thank the HSR. I thank the guys at Grassroots, all the David Vernells of this world. They're the guys that opened my eyes to motorsport. I think we're a little bit more proficient here. We're a little bit more organised here. We are a little bit, and dare I say it, and I don't want to be rude or throw anyone under the bus, we're a lot more stricter in what we can and can't do in our events to a certain extent. Free in some places and very tough in others as far as eligibility and the quality of the cars. The United States is a funny animal. The motorsport there, the thing I love about them is we'll place your car. We'll find a spot for your car. So they go out of their way to say, no, we're not going to say no. There's no such thing as no in the United States. What's your car? Let's have a look at it. Right, we've got a spot for you.
Yeah. I've always sort of said in my dealings with my feuding, I've never been there before, but I've had dealings with people, like with media and with series like IMSA and NASCAR and NHRA and all those sort of people, is that America seems to be very much a can-do country, and Australia is more a why bother country.
Yes.
I mean, it's like, as you say, they want to find out, look, if we can do something for, I mean, somebody like, a show like In Pit Lane, which is a community television show in Melbourne.
You'd be huge over there. Yeah.
NASCAR send us, specialists, they said, what do you need?
Yeah.
And would you like a clean feed? Oh, we'd love a clean feed. Okay, we'll send you a clean feed. And less than 40 minutes after the race is finished, I get 45 minutes of highlights. We can show up to sort of 3 or 4 minutes, but there's no commentary, there's no sponsors, it's a perfectly clean feed, high definition, and they will just bend over backwards to make that happen.
Yeah, and that's the thing that excites me, because I don't think there's an event that I've gone to where they've said, sorry, we don't accept your car. Every phone call that I make to an organisation, every conversation I have, every email I have, it's all positive. Here's our calendar. Here's our regulations. Here's the tech officer. Give him a tingle, explain to him, send him a few photos of your car, and he's going to organise, place it. They're very welcoming. They're very open to any ideas. It's just, I can't say enough about the country. It's just, it's an absolute can-do. There's nothing that they can't do. There's nothing that they can't achieve. I mean, let's talk about Sebring for a second. After Daytona, we left Daytona. We had probably a week window opportunity where we were based in Orlando at a friend's place, so we had the trailer set up. After Daytona, there was an event at Daytona called the Turkey Run. Now, it's a 4-day swap meet, car corral, and car show. They had over 20,000 cars on display there and over 5,000 vendors at the swap meet, and it was a 4-day event. So that was mind-blowing in itself. We went and enjoyed that environment, had a great time there, met a lot of different eclectic people with different weird, wonderful cars. One of them was a 56 T-Bird with a Volkswagen engine in it. Amazing, crazy stuff, So we go to Sebring. Well, let me tell you, Sebring, mate. Old World War II airport, had fighter planes there back in World War II. It then became a racetrack in the very early 50s. The Can-Am series was run there. We roll up here to Sebring, open arms with HSR. They saw us at Daytona. They were happy with my style of driving. I kept my nose clean, didn't cause any dramas. So when we came there, again, it was, George, you're back, great. You're here for Sebring. It's exciting to see you. To the point where, I mean, I've got 1,001 stories of Sebring, and I don't think we've got enough tape to go through it all. And I'm hoping that during the course of the year that we can get together again, either via live Facebook or something like that, and I can continue this journey with you, because I really want to show your viewers what the motorsport industry in the United States is at my level, not so much a professional, but a semi-pro. And I call myself semi-pro because I'm now racing full-time, not part-time. But they even said to Maggie and walked up and said, excuse Mags, would you like to come out in the pace car with us? We're going to start off the IMSA cars. So they throw Maggie in the pace car as a guest to go around a hot lap on the track. I mean, it's simple things like that that are dumbfounding. For foreigners in general, they're very warm and welcoming, and they just open their arms to foreigners and love Aussies. They love us over there. They can't get enough of us. I mean, one of the things that happened to us that weekend is they had a pistons and props display. So during the course of the day, the aeroplanes had landed on the back straight. They've taxied down the back straight into the dummy area where the cars were and put on a display of about 6 or 7 50s, 60s based aeroplanes. they've invited all the cars to come over and talk to the pilots, have photos in front of the aeroplanes, and just enjoy aviation at an airport that's a racetrack too. Anyway, we walked up to one of the pilots and said, look, can we bring our car and have photos in front of the car? And they said, yeah, sure. So we drove the Python up. I parked it in front of a Mustang, P50 Mustang, awesome aeroplane, you know. Took photos of that car, of the plane. I said to Maggie, come on, you know what, that's a gorgeous plane, but all these other planes are just historic planes. They've got a rich history. So we literally pushed the car in front of all the planes. While this is all happening, the pilots are looking and going, this guy and his wife, you know, they're all dressed in the Python orange and black Dickies pants and the cowboy hat, pushing their car in front of every plane. And I thought nothing of it. The next day we're walking around having a look at the planes while we've got a lull in the schedule. And they start talking to us and they said, oh, look, we've got a get-together here tomorrow morning. We'd like to invite you and Maggie, come over. We're going to have some group photos with them. We thought, oh, yeah, okay, a lot of drivers are going to come. We rolled up on the morning and there was myself and Maggie and they're taking group shots and they've called me over with the pilots to have a photo in front of one of the biplanes, and all of a sudden one of the guys is giving a speech and he goes, we'd like to award for the best car and the most enthusiastic team of the 4-day event to George Vidovic from Python Racing, and they awarded me with this trophy, which was a fuel gauge out of a Corsair World War II plane, and it just blew me away. And it was that, and I said, look, I'm flattered, but surely no. Their attitude was, you put in the effort, you pushed your car to every plane, you took photos of every plane, you spoke to all the pilots, you were so enthusiastic, you were like a child in a candy shop. Well, I am a child, which I was, because we don't have that rich history, so to speak, that the Yanks have got. And again, it's that thing, Aussie, right-hand drive car, a Cobra on steroid called the Python sports car, a crazy, mad, loud, insane Aussie there hugging everybody, with a wife who's sort of being really super cool and has worked in the film and television industry for 30 years and knows how it all works. I mean, you know, I can't say enough of the country, and we're having a ball. So we're going to be racing the Can-Am car in the United States this year, and we're going to be racing the Python in Europe this year.
So in the United States, where is home now? I mean, where are you based?
Well, we're based, when we originally moved there, I had the opportunity to sort of get involved with a company called Penta Motorsport. They're the ones that really set the ball rolling, so to speak. Great setup. They were in Canoga Park. We were with them for about a year or 2 years. It was a bit tough because they had their own transporter. We didn't have any transporter, so we only tagged on to Penta Motorsport. So whatever event they went to, we went. If we wanted to go to an event, we couldn't because we didn't have transport. So as my network grew, as I was there sort of full-time, part-time, we ended up moving out of there, which we moved out of there last year. We were lucky enough. It's like I'm going back in the time warp because we ended up getting a hangar at Van Nuys Airport. So it's like Carroll Shelby, aka George Vidovic, has now got Python racing at an airport at Van Nuys in an aeroplane hangar, and that's where we're based. And we've got our 2015 F-150 pickup truck and our 24-foot enclosed trailer that's all geared up, and we come and go wherever we please. We live in Santa Monica. It's 45 minutes to drive from Santa Monica to Van Nuys. I've got a security card for the gate to come and go as much as I like. It's open 24 hours. If I want to start the Cobra or the Can-Am car at 4 in the morning, I can, with no dramas from anybody. God bless America.
Well, that's probably as good a spot as any to sort of leave it. But as you say, you're going to race at Europe as well.
Yep.
With the Python. Yep. So what are the plans at this stage? You mentioned a few circuits.
Yep.
Brands Hatch,
yep.
Spa, and all the rest of it. What about things like, could it be eligible for the Nürburgring 24 or something like that?
They have like America, there are different organisations that run different events at numerous tracks. To do a 24-hour event at Nürburgring, I think we could be eligible to do that in our car. However, the British are a little bit more conservative. They've asked me to remove the wing and the splitter, which we have, right, because we ran the car at Sebring without the splitter, and without the wing, and that way we were fortunate enough to run with the vintage cars. They didn't put us in with the IMSA cars, and it was fantastic. Because I'll give you an idea, at Q3, race 1, which I didn't get a chance to do Q3, they put me at the back of the grid amongst 20 cars, and by turn 1 I went from 20th to 7th. So it was nice to be competing against like-minded vehicles. So in the
failure. Yep, that's still it.
Okay.
I'll just ask you that one again. So, what are the plans for 2020? You mentioned racing in Europe.
Yep.
What are you doing there?
Yeah, well, okay. Well, the thing that happened going back to Sebring, one of the things that I wanted to do was get into a like-minded class, so my car was competitive. So we removed the wing and we removed the splitter, and they put us into a class where we were running against Corvettes and Mustangs and other Cobra replicas like Factory 5 cars. So it was fantastic, and we were competitive, which was great. You know, one of the events there, race 1, we didn't get a chance to do Q3 through various problems we had with the car. Started last in the grid with the drop of the green flag. By turn 1 I was 7th out of a 20-car field, so that was exciting. Europe's a little bit like Australia. They're very reserved, they're very conservative. So they've asked me to remove the wing and the front splitter. I'm happy to do that, and that's what we're doing. There's an organisation there within another organisation, it's called Bernie's V8s, and that's a particular guy that's brought together a group of like-minded guys running Corvettes and Mustangs and old Aston Martins, cars that are the V8 based, basically, MGs and TVRs. He's invited me over to race in that event, so we'll be doing the Speed Fest in Brands Hatch in June. Then I think there's an event in April at Silverstone, so we'll be doing Silverstone, hopefully if we can get the car in April. Prior to those events though, there's an event happening up in Canada, which he's bringing the British contingency from the UK to Canada race there. We're going to go to Canada, race with his organisation, and then we'll pack up the car with his guys and ship it back, which will help us in logistics. So we'll then leave the car there, and then we'll try to do as many races around the UK and Europe and fit in as much as we can. But I really can't answer the question regarding the 24-hour at Nürburgring because I don't know what organisation's doing it. I don't know what the eligibility is with the cars, and their 24 hours is not exactly 24 hours. It's something that confused me a lot, especially at Daytona when they had the 24 hours. It's 4 hours off the track, 1 hour on the track.
Yeah, that's like Le Mans Classic.
Yes.
Which would be another, which is also this year.
Yeah.
Incidentally.
So that's how the Yanks do it. So I wasn't. I'm sure you're probably more aware of how it works. I got a little bit confused how they say, well, you're on the track for an hour. We document your times. You get off the track for 4 hours, then you go back on for another hour. It's a 24-hour event, but you're not really on the track for 24 hours.
Yeah. You've got the McLaren now, and you're going to run that in the United States.
Yep.
What chance that we might see that back in Australia at some stage for Phillip Island or Sandown?
A good chance. Funny you should say that. I ran into one of my mates here in Richmond who spoke to me about Ian Tate. So I'm going to see if I can hook up with Ian Tate before I fly over and have a beer with him and chat with him and see what we can do about getting the car over here, if not sometime this year during the course of Phillip Island or Sandown, definitely next year. Basically the easy answer is, yeah, you will see the car here.
Well, we look forward to that, and we look forward to keeping in touch with what you're doing. Because it's a much smaller world now than it was when we first met, sort of all those years ago. I mean, it all happens in that we can just pop on to FaceTime or Skype or something, and you're there. And and I've watched stuff on Facebook Live, obviously from when you've done stuff over there, and so hopefully we'll see more of that. Look, good luck, as I said. I really wanted to have a talk to you because I think so many people. I mean, I'm in the same boat where you think, one day I'm going to do this, one day I want to do that.
Do it, mate.
And but you have actually done it, and it certainly looks like it's paid off. Judging by the smile on your face, it's certainly paid off.
Living the dream, mate. Dare I say it? Guns, cars, and motorcycles. Can't go wrong in the United States, mate.
George, thanks for joining us on In Pit Lane.
Thanks, mate. Almost pleasure, absolute pleasure being here with you again after so many years.